Oh, yeah. How are you? Breaking news inside the Morning Combat newsroom in the sport of MMA concerning a trio of pay-per-view headliners announced to kick off 2024. I'm Brian Campbell. You know me as one half of this award-winning Morning Combat best damn combat sports show. I don't know if they ever made here on CBS Sports. Welcome on in, one half of your duo alongside the great Luke Thomas. And it was just a couple hours ago here on Monday, November 6th, to close 2023 that Luke Thomas and I were debating the exact news that we got right here. What is going to be on the marquee to kick off the new year? How will UFC lay out its chess pieces for the pay-per-view matchups to come within a calendar year of 2023 that's about to end, where it a little bit disappointing. Hit a lot of the high notes, of course, as the promotion does with the stars within its stable, made a lot of important fights, but we've seen the watering down of matchmaking across the board. We've seen the injury bug hit of late, which really tends to hurt more when maybe on a matchmaking scale, you're not putting your best foot forward in accordance to how financially ahead of the game UFC has been. But we had some of that criticism on Morning Combat trying to figure out the schedule ourselves. Well, now we've got hard, fast, and real answers from the UFC CEO, Dana White. He came out on social media and did one of those "what's up, guys" type clips, short, right to the point, a trio of fights. Now, no official dates and no cities announced in terms of venues, but what we do know is there are these three fights headlining January, UFC 297. It's going to be Sean Strickland in the first defense of his middleweight title reign, and it's going to be Dricus Du Plessis, the #1 rising contender, who was unable to make that short turnaround after he surprisingly knocked out Robert Whittaker to put himself in title contention, but did not get passed over for the title here after Strickland went and upset Israel Adesanya for that title. UFC 297 January. We've heard reports it could be Toronto. There seems to be some loose confirmation on the UFC's website that that is the case. But that is January. Let's go to February, UFC 298. Volkanovski is back, the featherweight champion, not that far removed from the head kick loss to Islam Makhachev in his attempt to move up and win a title in a second weight division. Now 0 for 2 in that. He's back down to 145. We know he wanted to turn it around quick. So Alex Volkanovski, you got Ilia Topuria coming up, UFC 298. Wow, more on that to come. And of course, the third one, Sean O'Malley beginning his bantamweight title reign just a few months removed from stopping Aljamain Sterling at the end of round 2. He's going to welcome an old friend, Marlon Vera. The Chito rematch is here, UFC 299 in March. Wow. All right. UFC kicking off the new year with a bit of a bang here. I like it. I like the proceedings. I like the matchups. Don't love, but I like each one bringing certain strengths. I think it's going to be up to the rest of the card in some cases to define whether these are strong enough main events to hold off. And look, I know I'm sounding extra critical here, but let's really look at the larger picture. UFC has never had the type of financial success year over year that they've been having of late. You have to expect more for the prices, for the pay-per-view prices, for what's going on, for the how large this TV contract is. Will the UFC come out depth-wise this year and really hammer home exactly who they are and what they're trying to accomplish? Now, that still remains to be seen. But after a year that's been a little wishy-washy, it's only right, I think, to expect more. Are we getting more out of this Strickland-Du Plessis matchup? I like it. I like it. I really like it from the idea of getting this first title defense for Strickland out of the way for the potential, if needed, for this division to take a short turnaround for UFC 300. We believe that pay-per-view, that historic one, will take place in April based on, the month, big pay-per-view every month for the UFC plan schedule that they've been on the last few years. And really, depending on who wins the Strickland DDP fight and, how much damage they take, could it mean a quick turnaround for the winner if needed for a UFC 300 showdown? Maybe against former champion Israel Adesanya. Depends, right? Adesanya did come out publicly saying he's looking for that long break. I think it would be advised right now, considering how busy he's been and how he already lost the title by knockout to Poatan, only to come back against Alex Pereira and win that so dramatically, and then lose the title in his next fight in such a lifeless performance in so many ways, as Sean Strickland's boxing and defense and control of distance really gave Adesanya trouble. How will Strickland fare then spinning forward against DDP? It's going to be probably a betting underdog, you got to believe. But this is going to be very interesting because, look, you got to take Adesanya's words at a grain of salt. Not sure. Would he come back quick for big money if it was offered? And because it's a grudge match for Adesanya against either guy. But the Adesanya thing is more me talking about the future. The upfront here, January UFC 297, probably in Toronto. The thing I don't love about this is what it's packaged with. While we don't know the rest of the card and how strong it will be, we do know the previously announced co-main event in recent days. It's not a good one there at women's bantamweight. Amanda Nunes, the GOAT, walked away from the sport earlier this year. You hadn't heard UFC really rumor at all how this vacant title at 135 would be fulfilled, whether the division would go forward, or whether there would be some type of star power break glass in case, if necessary, UFC 300 fight involving this division. Were they going to bring back a Ronda Rousey, roll out a Miesha Tate or a Holly Holm for star-studded rematches? Would that have made a lot of sense in that title picture? No. But how void of talent is the women's bantamweight division, and how much has it been since the end of the Rousey era, which was the perfect handoff through Miesha Tate to begin the Amanda Nunes era? And after Nunes clean things out across two divisions, you really got to see the elongated lack of depth there. Unfortunately, Juliana Pena is hurt and out of an immediate need to run this vacant title. But apparently the UFC's immediate need was to run Mayra Bueno Silva against Rocky Pennington. So that's your co-main event as things stand now, unless a third large fight would be added to this to bump it up. But if it ends up going down as an average pay-per-view card, in terms of top to bottom, but the top is Strickland DDP and Silva versus Pennington. Yikes, folks. Yikes. Do I like Strickland DDP as a fight? Yes. Is there, though, because of the upset nature and how Strickland beat Adesanya without an immediate run back, meaning, did what we see, is that the truth? Or was that an aberration? Was this a really bad night for Izzy mixed with a really great night for Strickland? What really happened here? It would be understandable in a division that had been so top heavy and star studded with the likes of Adesanya and Whitaker, and the tail end, of course, of Weidman and Anderson Silva before that. It would be understandable to have the kind of questions of, really, are the two best fighters in this division competing for this title? It's tough to know. It was DDP's run through of Robert Whitaker. Again, was that a perfect night at the office, or a more realized expectation and understanding of who this very large middleweight is? I don't know what this fight's going to look like, and that does add some intrigue. So I certainly don't hate this fight, but do I love it as a pay-per-view headliner with a weak co-main in a city potentially like Toronto, which sets records for attendance, is so passionate, has been behind the 8 ball waiting through the pandemic to start getting the UFC back in business? Yeah, you can raise the ticket prices. They'll probably sell out in a half second, but this card is going to need some help if this is the main and co-main event. Let's go over to that February offering. It's interesting. It's Volkanovski, it's Topuria. On paper, yeah, best fight of the 3. Yeah, it is the best fight of the 3. We got to find out here which direction Volk is going. Was it one, again, bad night on a 12-day turnaround against Makhachev, the bigger, longer, and it turns out after 2 meetings, potentially better fighter between them? Well, it was a devastating, violent head kick knockout just recently, folks. I mean, just really recently. If today is November 6th, we're talking about Volkanovski having lost on October 21st. So just about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks back. And now he's going to have a turnaround, which is it ill-advised? Is it poorly advised? Is this the best way for Volkanovski to get back on track? Should we listen to his words when he talks about mental health and saying, I just need a fight. I just need to be busy. I just need to have a goal. I think we can all understand that, but there's also a lot of red flags built into that. You add in his age at 35. It's just a number. Luke Thomas's stat is just a stat. But here's Volkanovski going in against arguably the toughest guy available in Topuria, after handling and defeating previously at featherweight the guy that I thought was the toughest available in Yair Rodriguez. But the way this whole thing went down with the second Makhachev fight, and seeing Volkanovski damaged and vulnerable, really for the first time in the UFC like that, short of getting dropped by Max Holloway twice in their rematch in the opening rounds, but getting right back up, being active and right back in there to the point where he spun that fight around and was able to rally late and win it. There's going to be a lot of questions. It's only going to add to the big bowl of soup here of trying to figure out what this fight looks like and who's going to come out on top. For Volkanovski, boy, is this a huge instant. And let me take the taste out of my mouth from Makhachev and let me get back to doing what I do best, which is reigning over this featherweight division. Or is this the coming out party for Ilia Topuria and this huge fan base in his adopted home of Spain, or he's hanging out with famous footballers. And this could be his crowning, his moment. It's going to be interesting to see, will this pay-per-view be on foreign soil for us U.S. fans? Will it be here in the U.S., given that it's likely the promotion is heading to Toronto in January? Or do they try to bring this fight a couple places, back down in the Oceanic region where Volkanovski is king? Maybe in Europe? I don't know. Maybe in Spain. Am I just saying things? Maybe. I'm not connected here on sources. You're not talking to Ariel Helwani or Dana White or Ali to come out and combat his news. But all this news came directly from Dana the Boss, and Topuria is a fantastic fight with a lot of questions and a lot of interesting potential. Best of the three. But maybe the one I'm kind of like really excited about the most might be this O'Malley versus Chito Vera rematch. So it's going to go down in March, UFC 299. O'Malley has had a heck of a coming out party over the last year. The split decision win over Piotr Jan, which was really the one that was going to decide for us and define whether his style, which isn't completely well-rounded, very heavily reliant upon his incredible striking and range control and power, what would he do against a badass, complete, well-rounded fighter? Well, he grinded that one out and won a close split decision. No debate on what he did to Aljamain Sterling, though. While I still think this came down, that second round stoppage, to Sterling getting a little bit too anxious. I think I said it was the end of round two earlier. It was early in the first minute of round two, where it was just sort of one mistake from Sterling to square up, come forward a little recklessly, and he got caught. But what this did was allow O'Malley to break through and show us that his game is what it is, but it's great. Only, can you go out there and defeat the one guy who has had your number inside the cage? This is why in a star-studded division with so much depth and so many names within striking distance for the title, from Merab to an aging Henry Cejudo to Corey Sandhagen, you kind of go in a lot of different directions for this first title defense. But I like that they went Vera, and here's why. Vera's going to be a guy who's going to be, in my mind, the totality of his career, kind of high and low. He's going to have these pockets of violence where he finishes people and finds a way in big fights and puts together winning streaks that tend to show you that this could be the guy. But he's also going to have frustrating fights and frustrating losses, which we've seen along the way, that is going to derail that and force reinventions. Right now, though, it's time for O'Malley in his first title defense to go back in there in a fight that's got a good storybook edge to it, with the history of those two having fought a couple of years back, with Vera having scored the only loss in the octagon that O'Malley has faced, or frankly, his only loss. Because he's got 5 losses. Excuse me, that was Sean Strickland's page. O'Malley's got the 1 loss, the 1 no contest against Munoz, but only loss was 6 fights ago, back in 2020 against Marlon Vera. Stoppage in late round 1. We remember what happened. It's a TKO from elbows and punches, but there's that injury factor. Enough of a factor for O'Malley to sort of lean on it as an excuse as to why he wasn't audited or solved. But I think also for Vera and critics of O'Malley, it was enough fuel to say, did he quit? Or did he respond negatively to adversity? It's interesting. A chance for him to run it back in a pay-per-view main event against a guy who's such a fan-friendly guy in Vera, who's such a killer. It's perfect. You hope that there's going to be trash talk that builds up to this, playing back the first fight. What did we see that we can actually learn from and use in our analysis? Or was this just one bad night, a complete aberration? I kind of like this first. It helps if O'Malley can win, helps build up his star even more as the company. Look, if the company's looking across the board and saying, who are our guys? Who are our potential pay-per-view stars, of the guys that have yet to really sort of reach that spot consistently? You got to believe O'Malley is number 1 with a bullet in terms of the guy that they believe who can take it to another level. From that standpoint, this is perfect matchmaking. You put him in there with the old rival. You put him in there with a guy who can give him trouble, but skill for skill, is O'Malley better than him? I think most of us believe that Chito Vera can find himself in elite circles with his violence and power and the way that he fights, but against a more skilled, quick guy, sometimes can have some of these problems. It'd be a perfect way for O'Malley to enter the deep, deep, deep end of this bantamweight pool, when you're potentially going to have to fight guys like Merab, the guys like Sandhagen, guys that are just impossible to look good against and prepare for perfectly. I like this matchup. I like this progression. 3 fights from UFC CEO Dana White. It's a good start to the 2024 calendar year for the UFC. For me, as a critic on this show, it's really the depth that I'm looking for. We know we're getting fight cards on almost every weekend. I understand that the quality of the fight night card could vary from time to time. I'd like to see them, of course, get out of the Apex and be in different cities with energetic fan bases, which can sort of make a fight night suddenly feel like a pay-per-view. But when it's time for the pay-per-view, the promotion needs to deliver. The market control it has, the amount of top fighters on the global scale it has, something like 80% we like to estimate from time to time. It's time to come back in 2024 and put behind us power slap, wife slap, watered down this, fighter pay that, Ngannou this. It hasn't been a great year. The big fights arrive and deliver for the most part in 2023, but a lot of extra crap, a lot of bad taste in the mouth. If you're a serious enough fan who actually cares about things like how fighters are treated, like how the future of fighters are treated with all these draconian contract changes and making it even harder to do what Francis Ngannou was barely able to do. The best way that you make that stuff go away is by making the fans really happy and giving them the fights they want. Here's 3 fights that are pretty damn good to great that I think they will. It's about, though, in my opinion, what they package with and around that for UFC 297, 298, 299, which was, no matter what, is going to end up serving as the appetizer for what eventually becomes UFC 300. I have no doubt the company's going to go all out, bring it absolutely for that one. What will these 3 look like on the way there? We're going to have to find out together. You can check us out live, of course, in Morning Kombat every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern here on YouTube, youtube.com/Morning Kombat for all of our bonuses. Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell. But for now, I am out.